What's up, everybody? Welcome back. So, a little bonus episode for the turret, and I got to this because someone in Discord, a member actually, asked if it was possible to attach the perception component of the turret to the actual turret. So, right now, you can see the turret is moving around, and the perception cone of the turret is not moving with the turret. So, it's static and only pointing forward. And that question actually reminded me of a video I saw a while back from Epic about some C++ for blueprinters for beginners. And it's actually pretty simple. It only involves about 6 or 8 lines of code, I think. And this will tell you how you can attach the perception component to the actual uh, viewpoint of the character. So there's actually other ways you can do it. So the member in the Discord already found out if he attached the perception component to another actor, he was able to attach that actor to a socket on the characters. So that would work as well. But I kind of want to show you the quote unquote proper way to do it, and also touch on a little bit of very light C++. So I'm not going to pretend I could have came up with this. So I'm just going to do the exact same thing as the guy in the Epic video. I'll probably do it a tiny bit slower, and at the end I'll also show you how you can migrate the new C++ turret into a new project. Because if you want to try and migrate the C++ file, you're going to run into a few issues, and that's not described in this video. But that's the only real difference. So the actual C++ part I just copied from here. I'm not currently at the point where I can write my own code. So I can read it a little bit, but that's about it. So what we want to do to make this actually work is first of all make sure that we have C++ in this project. So we have our turret project in here. We're going to go to tools and create a new C++ class. So we're going to create a new character class, and then we're going to reparent our turret character to that class. So select the character class over here and go to next. So we need to give it a name. So I'm going to call this my perception character. And we want to make sure that we make this public over here. And then we can simply hit create class. So you need to have Visual Studio installed and working for Unreal Engine for this to work, obviously. So this will take a little bit of time. It will add the C++ files to your project and set everything up. And as you can see, it will now include sources, but we need to rebuild it before anything will actually show up in the editor. And if we want to open it, I'm just going to hit no because we want to close the actual project before we rebuild our C++ project. So we want to make sure that we don't have the editor open. And we also want to go to the folder. So I'm just going to hit show in Explorer. And then I'm going to close the Unreal Engine project for now. So if we go to the root of our folder, we now have the SLN file. So that's the C++ project file, and we can just open that with Visual Studio. And it's opening on my other monitor, so give it a second, and then I can drag it over. So we have our project open in Visual Studio, and on the right side over here is the project. So we want to expand the folder over here, then go to source, and then again the name of the project. So in here we have the private and public folders, and in there we have the actual C++ files. So we have the .h and the .c++ file. So first of all, let's take a look at the .h file. And in here, we want to declare the functions and the variables that we want to use. So pretty much if we go to a blueprint and we add a new variable to the list over here, that's kind of the same thing as when we add a variable in a .h file or add a function over here, for example. And there's actually also a feature, and I think it was introduced in 5.1 or maybe 5.2. If you go over here to tools, you have the C++ header preview. And in here you can select the blueprint class and it will show you how the .h file should look like. So I'm not really sure how accurate it is, but it should at least give you a decent starting point. So that's worth taking a look at maybe. So let's get the blueprint out of the way. And in here we are in the .h file, as I mentioned. So we want to make sure that we override a function called getActorEyesViewPoint, and that function is used by the perception component to determine where the perception is attached to. So to do that, first of all, let's add the declaration over here under public. So let's make a little bit of room, and we're going to say void, and then the name of the function. So that's getActorEyesViewPoint. Viewpoint. And then that function is going to use a vector called location. So f vector location, and also a rotator called rotation. So that's f rotator, and then rotation. And then we want to say at the end constant, and then override, and close it off with a semicolon, like so. And so this will implement the function, and then we also want to use a variable. So we're going to add that at the bottom, again, under the public section. So we want to use a name variable, so that's fName, and we are going to call it iSocketName. And to tell Unreal that this is a variable, and also tell it where we can edit it and where it's going to be visible, we need to use a macro, and that's called uProperty. So that's all capital, uProperty. Oh, I need to add u. So there we go. And then we're going to say open bracket, edit anywhere. And also blueprint read write. Like so. So this will make sure we can edit it inside of the details panel in the blueprint as well. So this will implement the function and the variable. And now we want to go to our C++ file over here. And we want to actually override the function. So let's add it right after begin play, for example. And again, we want to say void, and then the name of the class. So that's a perception character. And then the name of the function. So that was getActorEyeViewPoint. ActorEyeViewPoint, that should be in the list over here. And then that was using an f vector called location, and then f rotator called rotation. And we need to say constant again over here, and then open bracket, close bracket. So how is it going to populate these variables, location and rotation? Well, for the location, it's going to get the mesh of our character. So we're going to say get mesh. And then we want to get a socket location. So get socket location. And we want to get it from our iSocketName variable. So iSocketName. And then close it with a semicolon. And do the same thing for the rotation. So this time we want to get the socket rotation of our mesh. So we want to make this an equal. There we go. So get mesh. And then get socket rotation. And again, use the iSocketName. And close it off with a semicolon. So that should actually be everything we need. So now we should have the iSocketName as a variable inside of our details panel, and we should be able to simply add that. So, and then it will use that socket to attach our perception component. So one thing I noticed, if we go back to the .h file, we need to close this one off with a semicolon as well. So otherwise you will get an error over here. So this is how it should look. I'll try and paste this in the YouTube comments as well, but sometimes it'll make actually smileys and emotes of these kind of symbols. So I'm not sure if that'll work, but I'll give it a try. But this is how it should look. So these 5 lines, and then in the .h file, you want to add this and this line over here. So now we can save everything and go to build and rebuild our solution. So this can take a little while. I'm gonna pause the video and I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so I'm back and the Visual Studio is done. So over here, there's no field, so that should be good. It says one skipped, but that shouldn't be an issue. So now we can close Visual Studio. We're done in here. And we can reopen our project in Unreal Engine. So I should have had it open already. It's taking a few seconds. There we go. So now back in the content browser, you should immediately see the new C++ class, and in the folders should be the perception character. So that should be in here, otherwise something went wrong. So now we can go into the turret folder and open our GDR turret. And we want to go to the class settings, and in here we can reparent it. So we want to reparent it to our new perception character. And if we do that and go back to the class defaults, now we have a variable inside of the details panel in here, and that's called the iSocket name. And this will be used to attach the perception component to. So now all we need to do is fill in a correct name in here. So if we go to the actual mesh, then we want to pick one of the bones that actually is rotating with the turret. So we could say the telescope top bone, for example. So I'm going to copy the selected bone name, go back to the details panel, and we want to fill it in under the iSocket name. So that's under the perception character category. So let's paste it in here. And now if we go in game, it should actually be attached. So let's have a little look. We want to enable our gameplay debugger and enable the perception component. And as you can see, it's now rotating with the rotation of the turret. And it also lost the limitation. So now if it actually has me inside, it will go beyond the normal reach and it will do a full 360 degrees. It actually lost sight over here. So that's because I attached it to a bone that's too low probably. So I want to probably attach it higher up to the turret so it'll look over these low obstacles. But other than that, it's actually working as intended. So that's how you can attach it. Now there's, as I mentioned, a tiny problem if you want to migrate this to another project, because the C++ file will not migrate from the content browser, and if it does, it will not work. So what you want to do in a case like this, where you have a very light C++ file that's only a few lines of code, what I would do personally is simply go into the turret, and then I'm going to reparent it back to the character. So simply go to the class app options and choose the normal character. So it will lose some data. So that's the actual iSocket name. That's not going to be an issue. So simply hit reparent, and now it's a character class again. So we can simply migrate this to our new project, right click, and then hit migrate, and it will only migrate the actual turret over here. And then in the new project, you simply create the new C++ class and paste over the 5 or 6 lines of code that we added and rebuild that, reparent it in the new project, and just make sure that if you reparent it, you enter the iSocket name again in the details panel. So that's really all you need to do. So there is a way to obviously migrate C++ files, but in a case like this, where the C++ file is so simple to create, this is going to be way faster. So, okay, so a little side note, a little touch on C++, which could be pretty powerful, even if you know very little. So I thought it was pretty cool to just show off. And make sure to check out Epic's video as well, because there's also some good information in that video. So thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, please consider leaving a like, and I'll be back soon for more. Later, guys and girls. Bye bye.